moving ahead with ETCIO BFSI Digital Conclave. This particular fireside chat is about how the era of banking is going to shape up, how the future of banking looks like, and the title that we have crafted for this session is The Era of Banking 4.x. And I have with me Akhil Handa, the CDO of Bank of Baroda, and we are going to discuss the topic here with Akhil. Akhil, glad to have you.
Always a pleasure, Amol.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. So, Akhil, we have seen major changes in the banking industry. We don't need to talk about it now because we have spoken about it at many occasions. But let's talk about maybe your perspective on the future. As we speak about banking 4.x, there are different X that has come into the banking industry. But if we take a view of 2025, how do you see the whole banking looks like specifically in the year 2025 for you?
See, I think given the rate of change in the banking and financial services industry broadly, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to imagine banking is becoming more and more embedded, or rather, I think even more than that, it becomes invisible. So if I look into 2025 and watch back, it is quite possible that there could be a set of customers who would probably laugh at the idea of having an internet banking portal, because for the fact that it is likely that they would have done their transactions from some other applications or digital distributors, where effectively the whole experience is seamlessly built into the application's reason for existence, and it is no longer centered around banking as a platform.
Okay. Noted your points, Akhil. I think platform optimizing different channels is where the bankers are heading, and they're talking more tech language than the typical banking language now. But let me get your perspective specifically on a 4.x. So what I mean by that is, what people say specifically about 4.x is it's absolutely depend on the kind of experience that you provide by partnering with different platforms and tech companies or fintech companies. So what kind of changes do you see specifically when 4.x will be there in the era of 4.x banking?
Yeah. See, I think, more than riding on the back of this technological change, more than, what getting into the nomenclature of 3.x, 4.x, I think 5 years down the line, the rapidity of the change that we're currently looking at, we will probably have the next generations or even two generations by then, for at least three key areas of banking. One is the product innovation itself, and you see BNPL today is a fantastic example of what a new product can do. And today you see loans as small as 500 200 rupees that are getting disbursed over to customers seamlessly, getting repaid seamlessly, all digital. These are not products that would have actually been done in a traditional banking setup earlier, or even 5 years back, or even 2 years back for that matter. It's happening now, and it's happening in a very big way, for the simple reason that now there are payment aggregations which makes it possible to have a 360-degree view of the customer, and you will have some amount of risk mitigation that you can build it into your product structure. So if the collection doesn't happen on time, then you will be able to have some sort of mitigation and be able to call from the customer the whatever is the overdue amount, right? And if that doesn't happen, then of course you can take certain regressive steps as well, all the way up to debarring that customer from transacting on merchant portals. And that is not something in a fast evolving digital world any customer today wants. So nobody wants to get cut off from a Zomato or a Swiggy or a Flipkart, Myntra, one of those things, right? So hence it has become very easy, I would say, rather, in a protected manner, to be able to do product innovation in the digital world. That's one. The second, I think, is given that we are, while we are evolving very quickly in the landscape, there is a very sharp differentiation that is emerging between the product manufacturers and the distributors. And I think overall, the digital distributors of the future will be the ones that have enormous scale, and which is sometimes called the internet scale. And I see only the market will be willing to be able to create space and room for only a handful of these internet scale platforms, which means that everybody else will have to probably get themselves listed. Now think about it from the giant Walmarts, right? So Walmart provides the shelf space, and then you have all the product manufacturers who get, from the Gillettes of the world, who get their products listed in Walmart supermarkets. And I think that is what we are moving towards. So from Gillette owning their own storefront, they are now going to get more and more products listed in these hypermarkets, and they're going to fight for shelf space. The fight for shelf space can only be built on the product construct and the customer experience that the product manufacturer can offer. In BFSI, there is of course a lot that can be done by the banks, and a lot of changes will be required on the regulatory front as well to be able to innovate that quickly, to provide that experience. Otherwise, the experience will remain broken. And if the experience is broken, you will not be able to solidify this dichotomy between a digital distributor, which is operating at hyperscale, and product manufacturers. And finally, I think there is a lot of room and, of course, a requirement and need as well to innovate on the cybersecurity front as well. And this is where, as the wave front for digital keeps expanding, the importance of being able to stay ahead of the curve and be able to innovate, bring in new technologies into the play to protect the consumers is equally important. So I guess, as you move 5 years down the line, you call it 3.x, 4.x, or even 5.x. And recently I've started hearing about 5.x as well. So we probably we're discussing a generation earlier now. But 5 years down the line, I think the key changes will be product innovation, accelerated product innovation. We will have invisible banking, and we will have new different ways of protecting the consumers and taking care of the cybersecurity risks.
Interesting points, Akhil. And I think I like this concept of digital distribution. I also want you to add more in terms of, will there be a different product offering on the app, because the banks are now heading towards customer experience. That is the primary goal for the bankers now. Second goal is to offer everything on digital, so app, so there will be multiple product offerings, right? So considering the new generation, considering the different experience, will you also innovate in the products that you are offering, as a considering the banks are offering hardcore fixed deposit and recurring products, but now we will also go into the typical wealth, insurance, and many other products, because you can do that on the app.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, that is what, for example, at BOB we are doing. So our digital bank product is Bob World, and Bob World is a financial superstore which aggregates not just the banking products but also the wealth management, capital markets, insurance. Today, you can get insurance products, you can get government products, you can get an Atal Pension Yojana, you can book NPS, be part of the national pension scheme. You can purchase mutual funds, and so you can apply for an IPO, open a demat account. So there are a range of things that you can do from our financial superstore, which is Bob World itself. And the way we've constructed and the way we've envisioned the path for Bob World is to merge it into e-com, down the line. So this is no longer limited to just providing banking or even the banking financial services from our group companies. It takes us all the way from the banking financial services and get them merged over to an e-com experience. I think that evolution is what will happen, and this is the future to my mind. In the past there have been companies who've experienced being able to list products on various e-com platforms. That has not really taken off in a very big way, but uh, recently I've seen that there has been an uptick for some niche products or some very selected products, like credit cards, etc., that have achieved scale. And I think it's only a matter of time where you will start seeing more and more of these products that get bought on these digital distributors, right? And so banks have to merge, our products with the digital distribution. Now there will be, a sharp dichotomy in the industry where some banks will be able to bring up the digital distributions and become the storefronts themselves, and be able to pull in, certain other e-com services to bring an integrated embedded finance experience for the customers. On the other side, you will need to have the banking products get listed on the digital distributors as well. So there will be some haves and have-nots in this. There is no one-size-fits-all strategy. I think banks will have to fight. There are pros and cons of both of them, and banks will have to see what really fits in with their own institutional strategy and direction. Overall, from a customer's perspective, if you just look at what does a customer want, customer wants right? And they're very happy if they get a digital experience. They're very happy if they get an invisible experience. And this is where, for example, what we see today, Bob World, our digital bank gets 3 times the daily footfall as compared to our branch network, which is very sizable, right? And that is the kind of evolution we are seeing for the digital banking
So,
industry.
meaningful thoughts here, Akhil. Uh, but my question is, whether the Bob World or many other banks have their different apps now and trying to put everything on the app. How has been the experience? That is one part of from the customer side. And how long does it take for you to resolve the issues of the customers? Are you also providing your chatbots or maybe what you can say a call center service to the customers who are facing issues, while buying a product? Because there are so many. I was talking to somebody very recently and he found a big difference between the Aadhaar card credentials. The bank was unable to accept that his Aadhaar card residence, which is mentioned on the card, is right, and honestly he has that Aadhaar card with him, right? So there are a lot of technical issues because of which people somehow don't manage to go ahead with this proceedings of the app. So how do you actually handle these issues and these grievances?
Yeah. And Amul, that's a point matter of that's a very good point and a matter of detail. And I'll just continuing the example that you gave, I'll give you a couple of more examples. See, so for example, today, if I'm doing a digital journey, I want to open an account. Some of the things I want to do is I want to verify the government, government sources of information, and Aadhaar is one of them. Now, in most cases, in fact, a lot of cases, we observe that the name that is provided in Aadhaar does not match the name that is given in, for example, the bank account itself. And I'm talking about customers where we already have a bank account and we want to open a new account, right? And that doesn't match, right, word to word. And the problem gets compounded specifically, for example, when we look at very lengthy names, we get into South Indian names, the problem gets multifolded. And so, for example, somebody could say Akhil Handa, or somebody could say an Akhil R Handa. That is a significant, that will not match, right? And if it doesn't match, then effectively we cannot continue the journey. So there are ways to continue that journey, and there are ways to also be able to resolve some of these. uh, I think the ecosystem is evolving on it, and there is more data harmonization that is happening. So for example, now think about this scenario. Now there will be one time update that will be required either in the bank account or in Aadhaar, right? You will get that done, and then the next time you try to do the same thing, you won't face an issue, right? So the quality of the data that we have will improve as we provide more and more of such services out in the market. But till that time, yes, I do agree. A completely frictionless experience will not be possible uh, in a majority of the cases, and we will have to provide, or we will have to also have fallback options, and they could be, assisted service or a callback from the contact center or a chatbot conversation. But we will have to plan for fallbacks as well.
Meaningful one, Akhil. Also the major challenge now when you talk about 4x or 5x. My question to also you is, a lot of tech companies, big tech platforms are offering great services, no doubt about it, and banks are trying to leverage it to give a better customer. Like I said, that's the integral part. But the problem is the whole ecosystem ready? Ecosystem as in the network, that is the most important part, right? Perhaps it's better in urban areas, not in the rural areas or some other part of the urban area. So how do you actually think? Because the whole 4x experience or the 3x or the 5x experience is based on the network, based on the whole ecosystem. It's not that you go to a branch which is offering you a great experience. It is an app which is based on so many factors which is going to give a better experience. So what are the areas that how do you actually take these things into consideration while crafting your digital strategy?
Yeah. No, again, a very good point, and these are the issues that we grapple with on a daily basis. And when you operate across the country, you will always have some pockets in the country where there is network disruption. The telecom network in that particular region is unstable. The SMSs or OTPs do not get delivered on time, and that does break the experience. I do believe in the overall overarching entrepreneurial spirit of the country, and I think the government is very mindful that these are areas that require their support. And without getting into a discussion on the telecom side of things, I do believe that the industry is getting back on its feet as well, and that is good for investments that they need to make to be able to uh, take the burden of such an explosion in the data and the digital revolution overall.
Okay. You recently launched Bob World. You have been also operating in a desktop or maybe a typical digital version internet banking and core banking in all sense really. Ages now must say. How has been the experience from the customer side? How much banking transactions, how much fundamental business has shifted on digital, and how has it helped you in business values?
Oh, I think more than the shift, Amol, I see the ability for customers to be able to quickly get more products and services has been more superior. So I haven't seen a dramatic shift in as much as I have seen an addition of new business.
Hmm.
And that business would not have come to the bank if we did not have these fronts. So I'll give you an example. Uh, Today, 97% of personal loans that the bank does is done digitally.
Okay.
Now, traditionally, Bank of Baroda was never big on personal loan business. But this year, we are doing a massive, over FY22, FY23, we will have massive numbers on personal loan only because we have the digital ability to be able to deliver that product. Another example, we have something called as a purely digital account, which is called the B3 account. It's actually Bob World Bonanza. Uh, Now, the B3 accounts, 90% of the customers that have opened the B3 account with us are less than 35 years of age. This
Okay.
again is very significant compared to our normal demographic of new customer acquisition.
Hmm.
And in as much as, and that's to my point, that there has been new business, new set of customers that have been added to the bank compared to what we would have done. So it's not as much a channel shift, and I think the channel shift is a gradual shift, which anyways is happening, right? So you see an increase in the digital transactions overall. You see a stagnation in the cash transactions. So that channel shift is anyways happening. But the more exciting part is the new business that has been added to the bank.
Noted your points, Akhil. And when the whole world of digital has evolved so much, the fintech, the big techs are also offering greater services. How at BOB, do you see the banking 4.x? How do you see the era of banking 4.x at BOB? What kind of changes are you seeing at BOB going ahead? What kind of offerings will you make at BOB going ahead?
Right. So look, without getting into the specifics of what offerings we are looking to provide, I can tell you that this is an era of being able to partnerships, and it is only going to strengthen. Right. While we talk about banking X, I think what we really need to talk about is open X, and open banking is becoming more and more important. And the fintechs or the other technology players or even the other service providers that are tech enabled, our ability to integrate some of these into our platforms is now becoming of fundamental importance to drive customer engagement. And today, for example, in Bob World, you see we have integrated third party services which are seeing some very good traction and engagement from the customers. That, to my mind, is only going to increase as we move forward. So this is a one-way street on which we're moving. of course, we also have to balance the overloading more services to the customer that they may not really require, right? And they necessarily not come to your platform for. So it's a very careful, fine balance that one needs to strike, and which is why, in banks, customer experience is taking a very central role in the internal deliberations and the discussions.
All right, Akhil. I think always pleasure talking to you. Always, great to understand the better perspective in terms of how the banking is shaping up and what are the new ideas that you are implementing at BOB. Thank you so much for your time and sharing inputs here at BFSI Digital Conclave. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Amol, and thank you for having me on this. Thank you very much.